Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of our 2021 Olympic Preview. Rowing Chat is going through reviewing all of the qualified crews country by country for the 2021 Tokyo Olympic Games. And today, I'm very glad to welcome as my guest, all the way from Hong Kong, China, Chris Perry. Hey, Chris.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining me. Now, you are the coach of the Hong Kong China rowing team, and you probably have a few other job titles, don't you?
Yes, so my professional job is that I'm the head coach of the Hong Kong Sport Institute. I'm responsible for the Hong Kong China rowing team. In Asia, I'm also the chair of the competitive committee of the Asian Rowing Federation. And within World Rowing, I am the development consultant for Asia for World Rowing.
Busy man. Now, let's talk about Winnie. You have Winnie Hung qualified for the women's single sculls. What's her background? Where's she come from?
So she is an athlete who we recruited through a talent identification program, which we run in Hong Kong. So we have a program which basically goes around to schools and looks for talented youngsters. And we recruited her just at the end of her sort of junior year, and then she joined us as an 18-year-old in our what we call our scholarship program at the Hong Kong Sport Institute. And so yeah, basically she came out of a TID program.
Fantastic. And how many years ago was that?
So 2017 we recruited her. So not very long ago. And in fact, at that point when we recruited her, she hadn't actually been rowing. She was very athletic in her school, but she wasn't rowing in the school. And we basically recruited her from a youth program which was introducing kids to row.
Fantastic. Obviously, you've taught her extremely well. Now, she's had a little bit of a circuitous path, hasn't she, into the team? Tell us a bit of that.
Well, yes. I mean, so obviously we were sort of guiding her on a pathway through, competing at Asian level, and then she competed at the World Under-23 Championships and had a remarkably good result in 2019 in Sarasota, reaching the A final. But we'd been aiming for qualification for the Olympic Games in the lightweight women's double. It's the obvious event. She's a lightweight. The vast majority of athletes in Hong Kong are lightweights. So it was the obvious goal for us. And we had a very experienced athlete already with us who'd been in the team for nearly 20 years, Lee Ka-man. She was an Asian Games medalist. She was a double Olympian. She was stroke of our double in Rio. And so the logical thing for us was to put the young athlete together with this very experienced athlete, and that was the goal. So we aimed to qualify in the double, and we built up for the Asian qualification regatta, which was supposed to be held at the beginning of in April 2020 in 2020. So it was scheduled for Korea, Cheongju, and we were expecting to try to qualify in that event. So all of our goal building up for qualification was this. And we trained in Europe, in Italy, as COVID was starting to break out in northern Italy at the beginning of 2020. We then had to escape from northern Italy, and we ended up in Canada, training in Canada, because we didn't want to go back to Asia at that time. And whilst we were in Canada and training in the double, which was going extremely well, first of all, it was announced that the qualification event was cancelled because of the COVID situation developing in Asia. And then it was announced very soon afterwards that the Olympics was postponed. So at that time, we came back to Hong Kong, and we sort of reset the plan ready for, when the Olympics would be for this year. But unfortunately for Lee Ka-man, for Carmen, it was a stretch too far, as it was for a number of older athletes. She had been looking at this as her last event. She had a number of medical and injury overuse type problems, and she just decided, and it was a very mutual agreement that she just couldn't make it another year, and unfortunately so she had to retire. And although we tried with a number of other athletes in the team, we just were not able to make a double, unfortunately. So we decided that we would enter Winnie in the open event for the qualification regatta. It's not the ideal event for a lightweight woman, especially of her age, but we said it's experience, race experience, and something that might take us through, give her more experience in a year when there's no races. So that's what we did, and then she qualified.
Woo. Excellent. Well, very, very good news. So she and you are heading across the way, as it were, to Tokyo shortly. Can you help us with another thing? I would love to clarify my understanding of how Olympic qualification works. So you've explained very clearly that 2019 World Championships is the first round, but that there are places held back for qualification during the Olympic year. From Hong Kong, what's the pathway for an athlete?
So if you're not able to qualify at the World Championships, then the next pathway is the Continental Qualification Regatta, and we hold a joint one between Asia and Oceania. So Asia-Oceania qualification is a continental qualification regatta in which there are a number of places, as you said, held back for crews from the regions. In fact, there are 5 places each for the men's and women's single, and 3 places each for the lightweight women's single, double, and the men's lightweight double. So that's the number of sort of slots, if you like. But there are a number of other rules related to this. So first of all, if you have qualified 2 or more crews at the World Championships, then you are excluded from being able to take part in the continental event. So that means China, for example, Australia and New Zealand are not able to take part in the continental event. So that leaves behind everybody else. From Asia, certainly China was the only country able to qualify 2 or more crews, in fact, to qualify any crews through the World Championships.
Okay.
And so we were left with the rest of Asia, basically, so about 20 countries. And then Oceania, just if you exclude Australia and New Zealand, then you're talking about the small island countries like Vanuatu and so on. So then you go to the Continental Regatta. So this also has a number of complicated rules because the way it works is that you can only qualify, first of all, you can qualify only a maximum of 2 boats, but you can only qualify 2 boats if you win 2 events. So that means outright win the regatta. So if you qualify 2, you can have 2 boats. Otherwise, you can only have 1 boat. And then the next place goes down to the next country, and then the next place goes down to the next country, and so on. So as it happened, when we ran that, and we raced in Tokyo in May for the qualification regatta on the Olympic course, Japan actually won all 4 of the events.
Home advantage.
Yeah, so that gave them, first of all, 2 boats and then all the other places were subsequently reallocated. So the 2 that Japan didn't choose, which they didn't choose the men's lightweight double and women's women's single. So those that they didn't choose were reallocated to the next ranked country. So when that's reallocated to the next ranked country, then let's say, I can't remember off the top of my head who it was, but the next country, then that country then has its 1 place, so it can't take any more. So then the next one is allocated down to the next country and so on. The only situation where it's complicated, and we had a couple of examples, is where a country has 2 crews that are ranked at the same ranking. So, for example, Iran had 2 crews ranked, 1 women's single and 1 men's single. And then that had to go back to the federation to make the unenviable choice to have to choose between the women's sculler and the men's sculler. So it's a very tough situation in that case. But anyway, as it works out, it means that by this system, the allocation of places goes way, way down. So although, say, in the men's single, there were only 5 slots, it was already going down to the 15th, 16th, 17th ranked players because of this qualification system, which is targeting universality, which is targeting trying to have more countries participate. But that's that's how it works, and it's a bit complicated. And finally, you have the host country places, which mean that in the case of Japan as the host country, if they are unable to qualify 2 boats themselves, then they have a guaranteed places in the men's and women's single as a host country. If those places are not needed, and in this case they weren't, those places are reallocated to other countries. And finally, we have what are called tripartite places. Tripartite places are places which are allocated to countries who have never taken part before, or perhaps have very, very low number of athletes who qualify for the Olympic Games across all sports. And it's called tripartite because the decision is made between a number of groups. So it's between World Rowing, Olympic Solidarity, and the organizing committee or whatever. There are various groups involved, and those people make the decision. But this is just for a very few places for absolutely new faces at the event. So it's a complicated system, was what I can say.
So Iran's second sculler might get a tripartite place if they choose between the men's and the women's single.
So normally they wouldn't, because they are already actively involved. So normally the tripartite places are for people who are really kind of new faces or newcomers. For example, on this occasion, one of the ones is from Vanuatu. So he was given the place because also he was unable to come to the qualification because of the COVID and travel problems. But very often those places are given to people who are really new faces and newcomers, and yes, absolute universality, if you like. Yeah.
Well, I was fortunate to meet the Vanuatu sculler shortly after he'd won the World Coastal Champs.
That's
so
right.
The Commonwealth Coastal.
Right. Yeah.
Very interesting. Well, there we go. Chris, you're a wealth of knowledge, self-evidently. I wish you and Winnie all the best in Tokyo. Only sad I won't be there to see you in person. And thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
So everybody, we now know exactly how the Olympic qualification works region by region, and we will be bringing you more countries in this series shortly. I'm Rebecca Caro, and this has been Rowing Chat 2021 Olympic Preview.